What's going on, everybody? It looks like another fun day to be in the Bitcoin miners, to be in crypto, to be in alts. The Bitcoin miners are flying, the altcoins are absolutely rallying, some of them. But let me know in the comments below, guys, what are your altcoins for this cycle? What are you guys betting on? I do think some of the high-risk alts are going to perform very well moving forwards, and there are going to be a lot of exciting days ahead for both the Bitcoin miners, for altcoins, for Bitcoin. And in this video, I'm going to briefly talk about a Bitcoin miner I don't really talk about much, Mawson. MIGI. This is a very small market cap, a very risky stock, right there with Sphere 3D, in my opinion, kind of the same tier. Very high risk, high reward. But looking at the Bitcoin miners, we are getting a beautiful green day. So far, so good. So far, the middle of October, we have been getting that pump, just like in previous cycles. Everything is going exactly as planned. Keep in mind, we may be ahead of schedule because we broke all-time high so early, or you could just chalk it off as the spot Bitcoin ETFs bringing that extra hype. But just keep in mind, you want to take profits along the way. That is something I want you guys to remember. And Bitcoin has two more levels to break out. It looks like we are breaking our descending resistance. Next is a break of 69,000. It looks like we essentially came up to it and we started pulling back. I want to see us hold this previous descending resistance as support and retest that 69,000. If we can do that, then it's on to break our all-time high, and then we go parabolic, and that is where the rally continues. And where the moving averages are concerned, we're looking a lot better there too. The 50 is getting so much closer to the 200 MA because of this recent run. Remember, these are lagging indicators. The 50 MA should keep getting closer to the 200 MA as long as we don't have a very hard, substantial drop down towards our support. But remember, these patterns are meant to be broken, and if it's going to be broken, I think it is going to be right at this time now. But perhaps Wall Street has other plans. Now, before I talk about Mawson, I do want to talk about this Bitcoin apparent demand. Well, it has turned green, but what does it mean? And you guys remember this name, I talk about him from time to time, Ki Young-ju, the founder and CEO of the on-chain analytics from Crypto Quant, talked about this apparent demand indicator. And it's basically the difference between production and changes in inventory. So production, meaning mining issuance, and inventory, meaning inactive supply for over a year. And here is apparent demand. We are flipping green again. Last time we flipped green like this, we did have a huge rally right around the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETFs. Now, you guys remember, if you watched my last video, we had a fantastic day on Monday for the spot Bitcoin ETFs, a record day in months. And yesterday wasn't bad either. Tuesday was pretty good. We saw 371 million in inflows. However, Ethereum did see an outflow, $12 million. This wasn't like Monday because IBIT actually did take the lead here, whereas I believe the day before it was FBTC. But this time IBIT took the lead, $288 million in inflows, net inflows of $22 billion. GBTC pulled in 7.9 million. We're starting to see more and more inflows from them more and more consistently. And now cumulative net gains are at 19.73 billion, getting so close. So close to $20 billion. And now the 12 funds collectively in total together hold $63 billion worth of Bitcoin, or about 5% of the total market value. And Ethereum outflows, Grayscale's ETHE still giving us those outflows. Kind of similar to Bitcoin in that Grayscale, they just keep selling. However, it's not similar to Bitcoin in that it has definitely not seen the type of hype Bitcoin's ETF saw. And Ethereum has actually had a cumulative net outflow, whereas Bitcoin has seen a cumulative net inflow. And while the spot Ethereum ETFs have been somewhat lackluster for ETH, I do think this will change as the sellers get out of Grayscale and we start getting some fresh buyers, some fresh hype. As we see Bitcoin go up, there will be more speculation, there will be more money flowing into other funds, into altcoins, and into these spot funds. Now, looking at Ethereum on the long term, we are still following our long-term ascending support. This is something I am watching that I think will follow out through this cycle, and our next crypto low, in my opinion, could be as low as 3,000, as low as 2,800. Our next crypto winter low could be higher than we are right here. I think that's a major possibility. I do still think by the end of this cycle, Ethereum will see an $8,000 to $10,000 peak. That is at least my price target, my speculation. Does that mean I am waiting until that point to sell? No. That means regardless of where we are in price, I am selling throughout the end of the cycle, throughout the latter half of 2025, maybe even in early 2025 at some points if we do see some good runs there. My point in saying that is as things run up, as the hype comes in, as everyone starts saying things are going to go drastically higher, that's when you probably want to start start at least trimming a little bit off the table and just follow the cycle. You know, 2025 should be the top. And Ethereum has an important point to break. I think once it does this, we are set to rally. We have to break this roughly $2,800. It was a resistance here before we broke out and ran. There's the proof there that once we break it, we will likely run. It was also a bouncing off point in the past. It was also a point that once we sold off very hard. And it is a general area that we don't just simply stop at all the time, but sometimes we do as a resistance. But on the break, there is a huge move. I do believe on the break, we will see a huge move. It has been a resistance up until that point for the last couple of months. Now, I do want to talk about Mawson. This is a very, very small market cap. We're talking about a $23 million market cap company. Remember, this is high risk. This is worthy of only a very small percentage of your portfolio if you're going to bet on it at all. Similar to Sphere 3D, very high risk stock, should run at the end of the cycle with alt season when the last of the money is speculating. When we're getting at the end of those pumps, where it's getting very risky to invest at the very late phase, that's when I expect a lot of these alts, a lot of these risky small caps to really run. Just like last cycle, what we saw with Sphere 3D. But here's the thing, you don't want to hold these types of companies for the long term. You want to hold them as a swing or just a play on the cycle. These companies are going to just continue to lose money and lose money and lose money and not be profitable. And sometimes retail looks at a chart like this and says, oh my God, it was $65 at some point. Oh my God, it was $100. That means this next cycle, it could go to $100. What that means is this company has had a ton of reverse splits. What that means is this company has failed NASDAQ compliance and they were forced to reverse split their stock. Here's one split here, a 1 to 10. Another here, a 1 to 6. We will see more as they fail compliance. We won't see it for a while, in my opinion. We are facing the next rally. But, you know, this is a company, this is the type of stock you don't necessarily want to hold long term. Stocks like these always get me when retail's like, oh, can you take a look at this? It was so high in price in the past, I think it's going to go there again. That's not how this works. To me, if anything, I'm very bearish because of this. This shows a horribly ran company. This shows a company that has not reached profitability at all, and I can almost guarantee you that. Just let's take a look. No profitability yet this cycle. No profitability before the halving yet. So while I sound very negative about this, just keep in mind, you know, these are risky stocks, just like Sphere 3D. Sphere 3D is the same story, but I have some money in that. I think a stock like Mawson, a stock like Sphere 3D, these will run late in the cycle, and you don't necessarily need both. You can go with one or the other, or you can go with both, but a smaller position for each. But just keep in mind, you know, this should not be someone's largest Bitcoin miner position. As a company, this is probably one of the highest risk Bitcoin miners. CleanSpark had a good reason for not partnering up with them, I'm sure. Another thing about Mawson is they have been somewhat consistently losing revenue, dropping their revenue. However, year over year, we have some growth, so that's nice. But just keep in mind, you know, this is such a small cap. When money enters, we can see huge multiples on something like this. Same with Sphere 3D. But just remember, we're not trying to hold something like this for 5 years, 10 years necessarily. It is going to pump with Bitcoin and give multiples likely, but it is also going to dump with Bitcoin and far outperform it to the downside as well. But let me know what you think about a stock like Mawson or Sphere 3D even. Are you speculating on these higher risk Bitcoin miners, or are you waiting until later in the cycle, kind of later towards altcoin season? Or are these just too risky for your blood? I do think some of the most high risk Bitcoin miners, some of the most high risk cryptos will give some of the most multiples, but there will also be many that fail along the way, also many that just don't execute right. So for that reason, simply don't bet the farm on some of these lesser known cryptos, lesser known alts, lesser known Bitcoin mining companies. A small speculation? Sure, absolutely. Can something like a Mawson or a Sphere 3D do a 10x, 20x even? I do think so. But they can also potentially go bankrupt. They can also potentially have another reverse split down the road. They will also likely continue to post unprofitability until Bitcoin is dramatically higher in the very, very late phase of the cycle. But let me know what you guys are loading up on lately. Are you picking up some alts now? Do you think it is time? Have you been picking them up? And how are you feeling lately about the Bitcoin miners, about Bitcoin? It does look like we are starting up our next leg up. This huge shakeout has really shaken out retail. Look at the comments on message boards. Look at WEBULL comments. Look at anywhere regarding crypto. Retail, in my opinion, is as bearish as they were in the sub 20k days. Now, that's not everybody, but that is just in general. In general, there are a lot of negative people, a lot of people that don't think Bitcoin is breaking out to new all-time highs, that don't think Bitcoin is going to follow its cycle as it does every time. And if you're really bullish on Bitcoin, if it doesn't follow its cycle, isn't that a good thing? We get to load up for even cheaper, buy more before it gets even higher in price. It is a lot easier to buy a lot of Bitcoin for 20,000 versus buying Bitcoin for 100,000. You could buy 5 times the amount. So keep that in mind when we run up. You should be happy when we drop and sad when we run up. But of course, I get it if you're looking very, very short term. Anyways, thanks as always for watching, guys, and I will see you on the next one.